on you. You can raise your virtual hand and I will unmute you or ask you to unmute yourself. And then you can ask a question or make your comment. Hopefully you read tonight's book, which is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. And I'll tell you a little bit about Alyssa, and I'll also post it in our chat here. Alyssa is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of romance and thrillers. So it's interesting because I had never read any of her romance, and I actually didn't know until after I picked this book that she's actually more known as a romance novelist. Her Civil War set espionage romance, An Extraordinary Union, was the American Library Association's best romance for 2018, and A Princess in Theory was one of the New York Times 100 notable books of 2018. She's contributed to publications including Bustle, Shondaland, The Toast, Vulture, and many others. Her books have received critical acclaim from many outlets. And when she's not working, she can usually be found watching anime or wrangling her pets. I've read some interviews with her, seen some interviews. She seems like a really fun person to hang out with and have a conversation with. And I always like to start with what you guys thought of it though. So you can also start with an icebreaker if you're warming up about what to talk about. If you don't know what you want to say about the book, I'm wondering if you want to confirm whether you've gotten your shots yet or not, if you're returning to a version of normal, how you're feeling these days, and you know, if you anticipate being able to join us in person sometime soon, if it's something that's available to you, if you're in the area. So feel free to start with that, or tell me what you thought of the book. Would anyone like to kick it off tonight by raising their hand? Go ahead. I see Dr. Todd's got his hand up. Talk to us.
Yes, fully vaccinated early on. Will not likely see you on ground. Though, you know, I have seriously contemplated just taking a flight in for the purposes of the thing. But yeah, that's about as far as it's gone, is a contemplation. So
okay,
no further than that. As for the book, for me, this one was on the heels of the other one of The Big Noise that we read.
Leave the World Behind.
Leave the World Behind. Thank you. So it got a low star rating in my book. I would say 2.5 maybe. I think this is a good author. This is another book. I'm up to now, I counted 12 that I've read that I never would have read because of this book club. So, and some of those are off the other list that you put out because I go through books faster than the thing. But for me, I thought she was a really good storyteller, but was trying to do too much and was trying to squeeze everything in about either a character that got too sloppy or too messy. And it's like, it would have been one of those things of less is more, and back away and just let something settle and stay around one central theme. You know, if I go back to one of my favorite authors now, Bachman, with his series of things, there's one theme. And what I have found about it is he generally tells you that in the first chapter, within the first paragraph. And it's like, don't go be looking for something different. Here it is. And for her, you know, I saw the theme of racial challenges back and forth. I saw violence. I saw urban myths. I saw relationship issues, then relationship issues between classes. And so economics and socioeconomic became a whole big deal. And it's like, no. You had like 5 novels in there. Just back away, girlfriend. Just back away, and just do little things, because I think she is a good storyteller. that's my take.
Thanks, Todd. Yeah, I think there was a lot here, and there was definitely a tonal shift and a point at which I thought it was billed as a thriller, and then it maybe doesn't really kick into the thriller gear until later, and the thriller part of it felt slightly rushed to me, and I was even maybe a little bit surprised by the romance in the middle. But I posted a bit here also that I still learned a lot though, and I really got a good sense of a place and a time and a neighborhood, and really checked on things that it's like, I mean, some of that stuff was historical fact that seems so unbelievable. I mean, the idea of, it's this amusement park where they're, pretending to be, slaves and revisiting, sort of like a slave world. I mean, you think that's something out of like a Jordan Peele Get Out, that it's, like an extreme metaphor, but that's actually based on fact. So things like that really hit me. I like her style. I thought the characters were fun and the dialogue was good, and she's the kind of writer who I think I would be interested in reading other stuff by her. But I do agree, maybe this wasn't completely. It's hard to say how to package or sell this one, and if you expected a thriller, maybe it wasn't quite that. If you expected more of her other stuff, I don't know, but I am glad I read it. So I'm interested in what Lisa has to say. She has her hand up. Lisa, may I unmute you? Talk to us.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I really liked it. I know it did, like Dr. Todd said, it did jump all over. And I didn't read anything about it to start with, so I wasn't exactly sure what I was getting myself into. So I kind of appreciated like what was coming next. Well, that isn't what I expected. Oh, now we're going to a romance novel. I kind of, maybe as a summer read, it was kind of fun just to flounce around with it. And then when it did actually very, very late in the game start becoming this, oh my God, what's really happening here? I wasn't quite prepared for it because it kind of lulled me into everything else as I was going along. So, it's a fun to have a different way to have a thriller and have a mystery and stuff. If you read an Agatha Christie novel and then you read every other mystery after that, everyone follows that like same pattern. Romance novels too. If you have a romance novel, by page 30, they have to have a sex scene and a fight scene by here and whatever, right? They can be very repetitive. And so I think it's kind of nice that she mixed up the genres and stuff a little bit just to make it a little bit more fresh and interesting, because I didn't really know where she was going with it. So I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads.
All right. Thanks, Lisa. Anyone else? I see Kara just gave some applause. I don't know if is it like raising your hand, Kara, or is it just applauding Lisa? Now, Kara, I'm going to go with you either way, because now your hand's up. Talk to us. I'm unmuting you. I'm trying to unmute you. I'm asking to unmute you.
Hi. I was applauding Lisa, and I decided I had something to say.
I love it. It went like this to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I thought I don't know. I thought like all of the themes went together really well. Like I don't see how you could separate a lot of them. Like maybe like you could have cut out like the romance potentially, but like gentrification and racism and violence are so like tied together inherently that like I didn't find that like to be a strange mix. And I also just like looking at the comments on it, like I think maybe the specific conspiracy where they were like going on tours of the houses and being like, I want that house, and like, maybe you had to suspend disbelief for that, but like similar racist conspiracies have happened, and then tying it into like this like illegal medical testing thing, like that's not even something where you have to suspend disbelief. Like that happened like until pretty like recently. Like people were experimenting on Black women's bodies for like reproductive like science like up until like the 70s, maybe even later than that. Like, so I don't know. I found like all of the like horrible things that happened. Like, I think you could look to history and see like a direct example. And then, yeah, they did mention a lot of like real like plots to like get rid of Black neighborhoods that have happened throughout history. So I thought it was good. I also thought, like, to me, the description, like, or the comparison that the book made to Get Out, like, was really apt. Like, I found Get Out, like, right away, you get those creepy vibes. It's very much a thriller, and I got those like right away in this book. And I knew there was something like weird going on with the mom, and so to me there was like an immediate kind of horror element happening, even if I didn't call that the mom was buried in the garden. I'm pretty sure she was dead and I didn't know what had happened. So I don't know, I thought horror elements were happening pretty early on in the book. And like, I'm not like one who like necessarily gets into thrillers too much. Like, I don't think books are scary. But I was like, the tension was pretty good in this book, in my opinion.
Thanks, Kara. Too many unread books are scary. That's what's scary, is when they taunt you and you just have shelves and stacks full of unread books. You know what I was really faked out by? I was wondering if anyone else felt this way too. After the initial hookup, you know, after the consummation of the relationship, if you will, the romance, I fell for, oh my gosh, this guy is terrible. Like, it is a fake, like, and I was mad, and I thought that it wasn't well written for a little bit, because I was like, I don't believe this. Like, this is terrible. Like, they don't make this guy like this. And then I was really happy that it wasn't that. So it's like, I give her credit for that, because she really faked me out. It was believable enough that I was like, oh yeah, of course this guy's faking out or something. And then I love that I was wrong, and that she made me feel like extra faked out. So I thought that was really actually pretty cool. So books might not scare me as much either, but they can still trick me and fake me out. And there can be great moments of suspense and not sure where to go. And it's funny to swing from, I went from being like, oh, I don't like this book as much. If this is like, I can't believe that this happened. This character, you're like, because we're getting his POV and everything. I can't believe that he would be this. And then I was like, oh, she did it. She completely wrote it in a way that worked for me. And I don't know if that faked anybody else out, but I was temporarily. And I was happy that then, he wasn't that. But Rebecca and Majel have their hands up. So if anyone else wants to talk about that, feel free to raise your hand. But Rebecca, talk to us.
I really like the book too. And it did try to be a lot of different things. I agree, Dr. Todd, but the points that were made, I thought really hit home. And I really got invested in the main character. I can't remember her name, of course, but I got a tiny, tiny glimpse of the absolute frustration that you must feel as a person of color when the whole system is geared against you. So definitely the racism and the thing, it got it turned into a sideshow thriller at the end with all the stuff happening. And I think that was almost deliberate, or maybe it was deliberate, to show that the reality, and then how surreal it must feel when you're in the middle of something like that, because there are communities we know that have been not just gentrification, but like murdered, pulled out of their houses, houses burned, war, absolute war. And that has happened on multiple occasions in our timeline since I've been alive. And it barely gets a ripple, So I thought that the over the top attitude that she went was absolutely necessary, because if we treat this kind of a thing in an academic tone or a sociological treatise on any of those kinds of things, that's how, as the establishment continues to survive, because it strips out all the urgency, all the ridiculousness, all the craziness that is actually happening, and we let it happen. So I I really enjoyed it for many things, and I was glad that the mom wasn't around to see everything happen. And I'm sorry that she died the way she did, but I thought a lot there, a lot to pick apart, and I forgave all of the flaws, I guess, that you might have seen, because the story was so strong.
Thanks, Rebecca. And thank you for forgiving all of my flaws for all these years too. So I really appreciate that. Otherwise you certainly would not still be with us in this chat. Speaking of someone else who knows about all my flaws, Majel, talk to us.
Can you hear me okay with the wind? Is it going to be okay with the wind?
I think it's okay. You look like you have some
okay,
nice,
because I'm coming to you all from Maui.
That's incredible. Now that's windy there.
Okay.
But that looks nice.
I really wanted to still come in because I really like this book. I mean, I don't know if it like changed my life, but I really appreciated like the analogies other commenters were making to Get Out. I felt it, and I couldn't help but wonder, like, I mean, I agree with everything that everybody is saying. I couldn't help but wonder if actually, could this even be more termed horror? Because there was a lot of violence at the end, and like if it was a movie, just, you know, I think a lot of blood and gore. I mean, there's a rotting body in the wall. I loved it, and if it's kind of more, if we can think about it more of like a horror than a thriller, because she just wrapped up all the signs so perfectly at the end. Like even in one of the very first chapters, right, we hear Kavan is missing, and that's how the two of them get tied together, is because Kavan is missing from their meeting, so she needs somebody else to help him. That's right in the beginning of the book. And then of course, Kavan is like identified as the guy who they've been experimenting on, but somehow got out of the medical facility and ran into Theo. And so, and then she just kept like dropping other little things like that, and then tied it together, which just felt very like horror movie. Oh, why is this person missing from this meeting? He said he was going to be here. Or when Drea stopped responding on her phone, and because the character has this other backstory, you're kind of, I think I was at least played into like, she's paranoid. Maybe this is an unreliable narrator thing. Maybe this is a Black Swan type horror movie or horror novel. But then it was like, oh, this is a Get Out. And I loved it. I was totally into it. It did make me wonder though, Jeff, just what you were saying. I got totally faked out. I thought that she was going to have Theo be a bad guy. And then I was going to be like, how does she write that? I did wonder though, the one comment maybe I had that I was like, about the book was, how is Theo actually a good guy? In the sense of, he, like, bit by bit we get revealed he's like buried a body, he's handled guns, and then he's a liar. Like bit by bit it gets revealed that he's got a crazy past from having learned to survive with two parents who weren't taking care of him and likely had all kinds of fucked up stuff they did. I was like, how is he even a good guy right now? How is he not like a messed up, psychologically messed up person who would turn on Sydney in a dime as soon as it became, disadvantageous for him? So I was kind of like, thank you, Alyssa Cole, for giving me a nice character and an ending that wasn't so bad. And I love that the ending, to Rebecca's point, I love that the ending left us with, this is still going to happen next. So this was this takeover of this neighborhood. There's going to be another one, because like just as we started the book, Alyssa Cole, like the first line, history's fucking wild. And so I loved that that's how she ended it. Like she didn't end it by being like, we're all better, everything's fine. We got back at Veritech, we killed the Veritech executive. We're not ending there. This is going to keep happening. So I really enjoyed it, and it was a great summer read. Light, great summer read.
Thanks, Majel, and thanks for making the extra effort there in beautiful Maui. Awesome to see and hear from you. I think knowing now a bit more about Alyssa Cole's other work is that maybe she did write an ending that leads itself to a possible sequel. you know, because this is like one case, but there are others going on and this is happening. And then now the two of them, you know about it, and they can kind of go on to the next place and expose it or help another, you know, neighborhood that this is happening to. So I wouldn't be surprised if it seems like it's gotten acclaim and has done well, that we see a continuation of this. And as to, is Theo still a good guy or not? I go back to the way she wrote him from the start, you know, and being in his head and knowing that, you know, his intentions are pure and everyone's got a pass. And I think the idea is that he's maybe representing white privilege in a way. And he has stuff he has to overcome. He has stuff he has to listen and learn about, you know, and he's not perfect. He's not completely innocent. He's been complicit in some things. And so he is in some ways a character stand-in for that. And so hopefully, because if he can't be a good guy with those intentions, then, you know, then a lot of people can't. And we have to learn to, you know, forgive and move past certain things so that hopefully Theo can show us that, you know, here's a way. I don't know, maybe that's something that she was trying to write with that. But I'm interested in what anyone else has to say. I see Kara has her hand up. Kara, unmuting you, talk to us.
Listening to people's opinions on Theo is interesting to me, because I didn't quite realize it was supposed to be like a fake out, because like we were in his head so much and I feel like we understood him as a character. Like I completely was like just waiting for the reveal for like how the misunderstanding happened. Yep. Like obviously, like I was like, oh, it's really bad that he was texting at the same time that she was reading those terrible messages. But like, I don't know, I just never bought Theo as a bad guy. And ironically, I didn't like him like at first. Like I kind of thought like, oh, like mediocre white guy, gonna be the love interest. Like, it was when we like found out about his criminal past that I started liking him more, because I was like, oh yes, it is inherently sympathetic that he goes around like robbing rich people. I think that's great. And you know, it doesn't need to be Robin Hooding, he's stealing for like himself. But I was like, I'm all for that. He was like, you know, scamming people that kind of suck. And then like the person that he was involved in like burying was like an abusive dad. So I was also kind of like, yeah, I don't know. Nothing that makes me think he's a bad guy. So I don't know. I found him in some like more sympathetic and more likable like after the reveal of those things. Whereas before, when he was just kind of like passively going along with like his racist girlfriend and like he was like still like a good guy, I was like, you're just like kind of pathetic, and I didn't like him at all. But yeah. And then I going back to what Majel said, when the violence started happening at the end, I was like, I don't know, despite all of the horror elements at the beginning, I was still kind of surprised, but then I was like really into it. I liked how fast they went straight up to just like murdering people, and like they didn't really have any like qualms against it. And like the funniest part of the book, I loved it, was when he like couldn't shoot his like ex-girlfriend and he like apologized to her, and then she was like, I'm not expecting you to be that cold-blooded. I thought that was very funny. So I don't know, I got really exciting at the end, and I liked that there were no kind of like moral, like we can't be as bad as they are, and like, you know, the stuff that you see in a lot of movies these days. I like that they were just gonna like, you know, kill these awful people. And I would totally be down for a sequel, and all of those like old people clearly have experience and have been through this before, and so they're like the masterminds behind the plan, and they can like go rescue these other neighborhoods. I would definitely read that series.
Awesome. Well, let's watch for it, because I would not be surprised. And I agree with you. I did like, even though I said it might have felt a bit rushed at that point, I think that was part of the exciting part about it. And part of the fake out was I knew this like thriller shoe still had to drop. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is it. Like it's a real, you know, and it made me question, okay, so how is she going to do this with, what were those, you know, all those chapters when we're in his POV then? How is she going to justify that? What's the thing here? What's the trick? but yeah, once it kicked in and it was just, I mean, using the guns and coming into the conference room and everything. I mean, it was, I mean, total like horror comedy, you know, at that point. It reminded, yeah, it had like the body horror aspects and then just the over the top, you know, now we're blowing people away. And, you know, in like the action movies kind of quips about it, you know, like an action hero just, you know, doing a one-liner after he takes somebody out and kind of just moving on to the next one, you know, and not really, you know, not worrying to process it or think about the fact that, you know, this is your ex-girlfriend and all of that. Todd's got his hand up. Todd, talk to us.
Yes, I agree with Kara. I wasn't taken by the texting and the messages that she was reading on the iPad. There for me, there was too much beforehand that where you were in the eyes and perspective of Theo that just wouldn't have worked. I mean, it just was a problem altogether. And I'm not sure that really added a whole bunch, but then that's not a big deal. I do like how she represented, and I thought she did well, you know, damage of a person is damage of a person, and damage can be colorblind. I thought that was an interesting thing where she was going with Theo on some of it that made me, that one did make me kind of stop and think a bit. I will say that she lost me on that thought though, or it got minimized when she brought in the part at the end where Leo makes the confession to Sydney that he's the one that's been robbing the neighborhood and doing all that. And it's like, well, you know, we didn't need that. I'm not sure what that did, because you've made the potential of Leo or Theo, who could have been stronger and really kind of aligning himself as one of the posse of the neighborhood now, to, well, I'm not really, because I'm out robbing the people. And by the way, I did that yesterday. And I think the same fallacy kind of happened with some of the emotional aspects of Sydney in the shooting of people. It's like, you know, you're a perfect shot. You got him right smack in the head where you aimed. You did it multiple times, and you did it to someone who was calling you a bitch right at the last moment. And your last thought was, I'm a horrible person. And it's like, well, that just, I'm not sure that would fit for me in the moment. You know, yeah, name calling, you've already took me down. You've put people in plastic or glass cases that I love, and you've got tubes going into them. And I'm going to feel really bad about hurting you all of a sudden and go through an emotional crisis with it. And that just seemed real and authentic. That's it.
Okay. Thanks, Todd. I see Rebecca's hand is back up. Rebecca, talk to us.
If I can remember what my comment was, I was kind of glad that Theo was a very average or mediocre, as they said, white guy. Only because, well, for multiple reasons. He needed not to be the savior. He could be a compatriot, but he needed not to be the savior. But he needed to think that he could be, and he needed to almost, you know, try to step into that role. But he needed to, you know, because it has to be a concerted effort on everybody's part to fix this. And you know, the piecing together of the mystery of what is actually going on really required multiple perspectives to understand that. I did not mind that he was the neighborhood thief. I knew there was, you know, too many dropped hints about it. He would just go out and get money. I mean, they would have explained that if he was some high-end financier who only worked, I don't know, 3 hours a week and had enough money. But it was interesting how he was deemed to be an acceptable partner for his white girlfriend, only because of the money. You know, that was the only thing that he seemed to have going for them. They were fine with that, and they were so willing to, I don't know, assume that that was all he needed to be as well. Anyway, so that relationship, though very complicated, and I'm not sure that it would be a long-term relationship, worked for me in the short term, because they were both kind of, you know, they were investigating this mystery. They were watching this very incredible thing happen. And again, it didn't have to be real to me. You know, this is a metaphor upon metaphor upon, you know, whatever you want to call it, kind of a story. And, you know, it's supposed to be in your face and push you around and look at something else and then in your face about that. And just, I liked the characters that she brought together to put it in place. And I didn't have to like those individual characters all that much.
All right. I'm interested in did anyone find something most surprising about When No One Is Watching? Is there something that really surprised you about it? And another thing to consider is, what do you think Alyssa Cole feels about, or what do you take from this, after reading this, the difference between a neighborhood revitalization and gentrification? And can there be a positive revitalization, and how is that done without it, you know, coming across as, you know, the other end of the spectrum, gentrification, as is shown to the extreme here? If anyone has any thoughts on that, feel free to raise their hand. Otherwise, if not, anyone that hasn't had a chance to speak tonight that wants to, I see Todd's hand is back up. Todd, talk to us.
Yeah, really good call out on regentrification versus revitalization. And you know, I was actually thinking about that most of the way through the novel, because where's the line? And I do think she was trying to show some positive aspects towards revitalization, the neighborhood touring, that whole thing, which was much more formal than informal. And there was work effort that went into doing it. The parade or fair, or whatever it was, that they were doing, that brought together neighborhood members in a positive way and united them in a positive way. A real rarity, which I thought was on point, but a real rarity, which is the senior daycare center, which actually speaks to revitalization of the neighborhood in an appropriate way, and how it can age appropriately. You know, counter, I thought there was a lot of honest negative writing about, you know, gentrification of neighborhoods. And I do think she questioned or raised the question, is gentrification a bad word? Or is it something that is either done poorly or well? And so, don't know. I would be I wouldn't want to put a regentrification of neighborhoods has a tendency to get really bad press and a bad tonality to it, and it deserved, not like it hasn't gotten there somehow.
I'm struck by one of the passages, one of the scenes that I recall was when she goes into her neighborhood deli, you know, and it's completely different, and how these things can seem to change, you know, almost overnight. I mean, this was an extreme example of it, but I think what I'm relating to lately is there are a lot of things that aren't going to reopen now, maybe in our current neighborhoods, because of, you know, post-pandemic, because of things that they closed in the pandemic. And I'm coming from a live events background, and I'm always interested in and saddened by this theater is not going to reopen. You know, they closed quietly. There was no fanfare. We just heard of, you know, two great landmark movie theaters here closed in Minneapolis. Two of my favorites, Uptown and the Edina Theater, that are landmark theaters that will not be reopened. And now we only have one in the Twin Cities. So just things like that are happening, and we're going to come back to that. And I don't know what's going to take the place of these things and how long they might remain vacant. But I think, you know, in some ways it's almost going to feel like overnight, because we come back to the world and not everyone's coming with us. Not everything is going to be reopened and might never reopen. And it just reminded me, I was kind of struck by that scene for her. And just imagine if the place that you went to, you know, and the people that you saw every day, and you don't get a chance to say goodbye, and they just go away, and it becomes something else. That, you know.
I do think you raise an honest point, though, and it is something that she brought out, is that whole look at how do you handle it. You know, I was part of a homeless panel today here in San Diego, and one of the themes that we were pushing out on it is, you know, stop the presses on calling out everything bad. We can do that real easy. Tell me what you're doing good. And you got to use that one starfish approach of, I threw one in and it mattered to that one. And so my shoulder leaning in did something, and it caused a ripple, which then subsequently caused greater ripples. So I think she was communicating that there's one option, and that store was another. I thought she did a little bit over the top on how he treated her, Sydney, the character Sydney there. I'm not sure how realistic that is for a white owner to go into a very diverse neighborhood and all of a sudden be able to say exclusionarily, this is what you're going to, how you're going to treat people. It's one thing to put different products on the shelf. It's quite another to call them out on robbing and cheat them in front of them and stuff and consider them stupid.
All right, I see Maui's got her hand up. Maui Majel, talk to us.
My mom also just came by. Hi, Mom. We're having a great time. I really appreciate the questions about just like, and your point, Jeff, and the emotional connection between what it feels like to walk into a place and it's not the people who you knew. I think that's another thing that I really liked about this book, is that as a white person, it just so happens that I happen to have grown up in predominantly white spaces. My neighborhoods in California were predominantly white. And so that means I know one type of experience, and then that's limited. And so I love hearing the voice of Black authors, and then especially Black women, and how they might experience the world, how they might think about their neighborhood, what feels familiar and important to them that I probably wouldn't have identified. Like, I don't know, I'm not someone who sat on my stoop and said hello to neighbors. And is that a particularly white thing that I didn't do that? Is it a particularly Black thing that some communities do? Is it the whole moral? Is it the piece of the book they talked about that since the majority communities aren't going to look out for them and are going to actively try to steal from them, Black communities have to do all the work taking care of themselves? And so they do have connection and community with their neighbors in a way that I personally didn't experience. And maybe other white neighborhoods are just like that one. People are on their stoop, everybody knows each other, you have a block party. But I really appreciate sometimes, like, I was like, oh, what a pleasure to have that also I think, like, Alyssa Cole, thank you for being willing to share your Black voice, your Black woman's voice, and like how you would see and walk through this neighborhood and this world and what it feels like to you. Because then that made me think, well, just like they're saying in the book, the most important part about neighborhood decisions has to be by those people then, because they have so many lived histories of when other people have made decisions and taken from them. I can't remember who, I'm upset about which older character, I can't remember who said it, but they said something about when they want it, they'll always find a way to take it. And when she was talking about the blackout and how the blackout was planned from back in, you know, whatever many decades ago it was, if they want something, they'll take it from us. And so if that's the emotional feeling, like even within people's bodies about their neighborhoods and their spaces, that they're going to be taken away if they're not, like, I guess, not if they're not careful, but just like right underneath their feet. That was like really important for me to hear. I was like, oh, wow, thank you for giving me this really unique voice that I would never think or experience otherwise. And so if gentrification or revitalization or urban renewal, a lot of those words mean things that I don't really know what they mean. But if there's community uplift that needs to happen, it makes me think that it has to be primarily led by them, and I need to like take a backseat and listen. That's what I think I learned, especially from this book. And then I'm gonna turn off my camera because I'm gonna walk around and I'm gonna keep listening.
Okay, thanks, Majel. And thank you. I also for I was especially hit by that comment also, or that phrasing that you said there. And now I'm drawing a blank on which one it was. I had it in my head. It'll come back to me. But I have Andrew with a fresh hand. So Andrew, please talk to us.
Hello, everyone. I've been listening all along while I made dinner, so great discussion so far. I enjoyed the book. I thought I struggled with it a little bit at first. I thought the setup was a little bit slow, but then it really got going, and I just enjoyed the book. I thought she did a nice job of making it an enjoyable read. I thought that, like some other books that we've read, this was informative in terms of some of the things that Black communities, in particular poor communities, have had to deal with. And I like very much that the sense of paranoia that was put throughout the book. You know, there's a lot of anti-conspiracy theories out there because of our more recent conspiracy theorists being in the what the average white guy kind of area. But if you are in a community of color or in a poor area or things like that, I mean, you have some pretty reasonable reasons to feel like the system is set up against you and that the forces are not heading in your direction. And I thought she did a nice job of kind of presenting this person saying, you know, no, this isn't as bad as I think, but yes, it really is this bad. And then she just went there with the whole gunfight and everything like that, which was super satisfying at the end, when, you know, they just blow everybody that's bad away. I will say there's something weird that's going on. So the other book that we read was It's Such a Fun Age, another book with a very similar kind of character setup. You have this young Black woman who is encountering troubles in her life, or challenges in her life, and there's this kind of bozo white guy who's, you know, not great, but not so bad, you know, and just kind of, you know, love interest and all that sort of thing. But the real bad guy is the white ladies, and they're real bad. I mean, these characters have no redeemable qualities at all. The Julia character, the ponytail Luluman, I mean, it was a total setup of, these, you were not supposed to like these characters, and you were really, really happy when they both got blown away at the end, in a spectacular sense. And I wonder if that's kind of a blind spot in this area, because that seems unfair. It seems unfair to me that you have these male white romantic characters who are kind of, aw shucks, maybe I can learn something, this sort of thing. And then these absolutely irredeemable. I mean, I wanted them to die the way that they were presented. They were not, it was terrible. And that's the author's fault. It's not my fault. I wasn't out there saying I really want, to hunt down some white women in Brooklyn who are, are causing problems. This was an author setup of, hey, here's the way I'm presenting these characters. And that was weird. And I don't like that aspect of it, but I also don't understand it. But I've seen it now in 2 books that we've read by Black women authors with very similar character setups. And while it was satisfying to see those awful white women, really, get both barrels, I'm a little suspicious of how reasonable that is. So I'll leave it there.
Okay, well, I think you make some good points, Andrew, about some slight similarities, especially I thought in the boyfriend character. You're right, sort of the aw shucks, he means well, but boy, he doesn't know a lot. So we're gonna teach, we have a way of, it reminds me of, when you have that fish out of water character that helps explain and world build for you. So when you have to explain it to somebody. So when we have the not so smart white male who wants to be better and wants to learn from the Black woman, then she can tell us a few things that we all don't know or that we all could stand to hear as readers. But you're right, that's an interesting thing. And I see a couple of white women now with their hands up, so maybe they would like to speak to it, as they are the true villains in a book. I think about it though, and usually our book club, we have a lot of them with us. They are strong, they're the best readers, and white women, they really make up a strong part of this book club. So if anyone else wants to defend themselves, we'll see if Rebecca or Kara want to take that bait. Otherwise, Andrew and I will just go on being the aw shucks, bumbling, dumb white guy who means well, but you could tell us. Rebecca, talk to us.
I know that white woman. The girlfriend. She was very real, and I don't care how over the top it was. She was a real person, and Alyssa Cole had met somebody like that and described that person down to a T. So I had no problems with that stereotype. And yes, women can be, I don't like to use the B word, but there's a reason why it's used for women sometimes. Men are, anyway. The other thing that I wanted to bring up real quick, and then we can go back into the whole analysis of white women and et cetera, but was the badass Black old folks that came in at the end and seemed to know all the stuff. They were the true heroes and the true people who saved the day and knew how to do it. And that was actually the most unreal part of it. The fact that there would ever, I just don't see the Black community having deliberate. Well, maybe I should rethink that and check my assumptions and all that kind of stuff. I would hope that there would be a very strong so far under the radar that we don't know that it happens, that people are working together to save communities as much as possible. But it did feel like a little late in the whole process that they ended up being able to do stuff. So anyway, that's my thoughts.
Thanks. I see Kara, and Kara, I want to, yes, you are correct though. In such a fun age, the main character does not end up with the white guy. And as we said, we don't know how long this relationship here will last, although it maybe, there'll be like a Mulder and Scully pair going on and solving other cases along the way. We'll see. Kara, talk to us.
I will never intentionally defend a mediocre white man, but I will say Theo did murder a bunch of people for her. And so that immediately means I think that he is more of an ally than the white guy in such a fun age. He was able to humble himself, which the all white guy in such a fun age also was never able to do. But I think also to just address Andrew's point about this, I think the authors are very important to recognize. If this book was written by a white man and he was trying to make white women the most villainous characters, that would maybe kind of be putting the responsibility off yourself, dude, and just being misogynistic. But the fact that both of those authors in these books are Black women, and also in such a fun age, I really don't think the guy was I thought he was pretty bad,
Yeah, he's revealed, definitely.
I don't think we're meant to think that he is that much better than the white woman. in this one specifically, I think like maybe she has like a lot of personal interactions that like have influenced the way she wants to depict it. But I think that also there is a lot more recognition in the last several years of the way that white women in particular are able to weaponize racism in ways that white men can't. And so, you know, in older books, or other just portrayals in general, there are so many, you know, racist white men that we've seen depicted. And you still see racist white men that are like irredeemable depicted pretty frequently. So, you know, I've noticed the trend too, where you're seeing it in more white women, but I think it's fair. And I think it's like it's good to recognize it. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just didn't have a problem with it. Like, I don't think, I don't know. I think if it was written by someone else, then maybe that would make a difference and maybe it wouldn't come across as good. But I think like Black women in particular, like have had to put up with white women in the movement for way too long. And so if they want to, you know, put all of the traits that they have had to deal with, you know, in their lives into a character that is like the villain, then they should do it. And I also have met Kims in my life, and if she was a very realistic character, you know. No, I don't think any of the Kims that I met in my life were trying to like, you know, imprison people and do medical experiments on them and steal their homes. But the interaction in like that store with her, like that was like something that has definitely happened like way too often. So I guess maybe we're just in the time when we need to be criticizing white women right now.
Well, at least she wasn't named Karen. I mean, you know, she could have just been named Karen, but I don't know who's worse, a Kim or a Karen, but very similar.
I would say Kims are not having a good time right now.
Jeff, I'm going to break in because
Yes,
I know you like
please
that. We all know what a racist white man looks like. You know, that trope is so overwhelming. Oh, we've had 4 years of it being president of our country. We know what that looks like. And it's not that it's not good to point it out, but I love that this book points the finger at us who, you know, we are just as complicit. And yes, we do tend to get a pass because we're a little bit oppressed ourselves, you know, in the gender hierarchy. And so we can sometimes go, but I'm a victim too. So I don't get to, you know, anyway, the point being, I think we could have 300 years of writing books that just slander white men and white women, and it still would probably not be enough.
Also, I'm going to chime in one more time. Sorry. The only two like sympathetic gentrifiers that we get are white women. It's Jen and Jen. We haven't actually talked about those characters yet. I thought they were interesting. Like the author still looked at them from a pretty critical lens. Like I really liked the comment about how like, you know, they would make a point of like, you know, holding hands in public and like making eye contact, like they're challenging people and like not like recognizing that they were living next to like two Black gay women who were older. Like they might have been assuming that they were just friends. And I think like that commentary against like the white queer community was very accurate as well. But even though they like labeled that criticism, like in the like message board thing, Jen and Jen were, you know, pretty supportive, and they seemed, you know, willing to listen to Black leaders in the community when it came to the event. So like if there were going to be like sympathetic people and people that were maybe resented a bit, but still sort of being welcomed into the community, it was those characters. And I thought that was like an interesting take, considering that like all of the other people that moved into the neighborhood were part of this like cabal of evil white people that were like murdering people and stealing their dogs.
Good point. Glad you brought it up. Andrew, feel free to jump in now too.
I just want you all to know that us white guys that are very average, we're sneaky smart. So watch out. I would, don't give us an inch, man. We'll take a mile. one interesting thing about this, we've talked about Get Out, but another popular culture show that I thought I thought of was the Watchmen show that was on HBO, which was I thought there were several things. First of all, you obviously the Tulsa race cleansing that occurred was your most dramatic example that we have that I'm aware of this kind of thing that was there. But also, if you remember, there was the character that was the hooded character. And I'm sorry if I'm going way out. I know Jeff is all over this, but the hooded character was a black man who had a history with the Tulsa race riots, and people assumed that he was white. He also happened to be gay, and he was in New York, and he was fighting the Klan essentially in New York as this. And I really, so like as those old folks came out with the bat, like the most satisfying thing was like the curly haired guy that was, strapping up Sydney and Theo, getting ready to, drug them up, curly head guys, like, it's just my job, and then whoever, I forget the name of the guy, comes in with a baseball bat, literally crushes in his face, which is awful. No one should crush in another person's face with a baseball bat. But that was very satisfying in that kind of Watchmen kind of way. Like, there is a battle between good and evil in our inner cities that, and there are people that know what's going on. I thought she was kind of channeling a little bit of that. Like, we have heroes in our inner cities and that sort of thing. And I thought that was a neat little a play on that. So anyway, that was another thought of mine.
Excellent series. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, and even if you didn't particularly love the graphic novel, which we read, the series, I think, really modernizes it and takes it to another level. And it's quite a good story and worth checking out. So yeah, Hooded Justice was the character, and everyone assumes he's white, and little do they know, yeah, he is a black gay man. And there's some incredible violence in it too, though. But I thought I had another hand. I did not. But does anyone else have anything that we haven't discussed yet they would like us to attempt, or any takeaways you'd like to talk about? Something you got from it? I'd love to hear from someone that hasn't had a chance yet.
What does Sue think? Sue, I want to know what you think.
Sue, you're being called out by Rebecca. Are you with us?
Hello, I'm
Sue?
eating, so I'm not going to put my
Okay.
camera on.
That's okay.
I generally liked it, and I echo a lot of what's been said. I don't watch a lot of horror movies, but I did watch Get Out, and that was what I thought of when I was reading this book. Interesting comment though about gentrification. A couple weeks ago, I work from home now, and my sister and brother-in-law were over doing my yard work, so we were out in the front yard chatting, and this was a couple weeks after the Dante Wright killing. I live in Brooklyn Center, and out of the blue, a car stops, and guy gets out and yells at me, "Hey, you want to sell your house?" And all three of us just started laughing. And I said, "No, they're gonna have to pull me out of here by my ankles when I die." But I think it had started the, city that had some turmoil, and the developers are going around, seeing who wants to get out. And Brooklyn Center, Richfield, a few other kind of entering suburbs had already kind of started on that path, that we were the hot markets, so to speak. So, and I've been noticing a lot of for sale signs popping up. So it'll be interesting to see how the community kind of absorbs what's gone on the last few months.
Great point, Sue. Here in Minneapolis, I'm experiencing a little bit of that too. There's just, there's always people that have been trying to buy our house before we wanted to sell it anyway, just because of scarcity here. But lately I have seen some people just decided, it wasn't for them anymore. And there's been other people, mostly that don't live in the city, who have questioned, my safety and do I go down, do you still go places in Minneapolis, and aren't you worried about crime and all of these things, and how can you handle it? And I think for some people, that maybe had already done some sort of a white flight to farther suburbs, this was what they feared, and confirmed all of their worst fears, and they want to tell us to further to get out. And I don't know, like it saddens me, especially when it's, people I like and know that just don't understand what it's like maybe to live in the city, and how great this city is, and how we're going to overcome, things that have happened, and be better for it. But yeah, so I'm not selling my house right now either. But Sue, no one's going to drag you out of there, because you still got books and bars to do. So, you stay in there. You can keep your video off, finish your dinner, enjoy your time. I would love to call out Bob. I did it in the chat. I don't want to embarrass him though, but I'm excited to see Bob here. I know he's a big horror fan, and I wonder if he wanted to speak to, Major wanted to label this more horror than thriller. So Bob, if you're comfortable and want to speak, would love to have any thoughts that you have on the book tonight, especially maybe in relation to any horror aspects of it, or what interested you in this one to actually to read and join us. I don't know if you're still there, Bob, but I see your name, so I would love to hear from you. That's my call out. Anyone else have a call out they want to do? I like this new section when no one has their hand raised. We could say, who would you like to hear from on this list?
Bob wants to talk. Unmute him.
Okay. I'm trying. I'm asking to unmute him.
Someone
Bob.
help Bob.
There we go. Ashley's trying to help me because I'm a rookie at all this stuff.
He's such an old.
Hey, Ashley. Look at
Hey, Ashley.
Hey, friends. Sorry, I didn't read this
So,
month.
Bob,
so.
were you actually trying to talk and you couldn't?
No, I just when you called me out, I figured I could talk a little bit about that.
You could.
The characterizing it as a horror is hard because there's such a broad breadth of things that you can call horror. To me, I didn't read it as a horror, but I read a lot of horror, so that's why I don't like categorize it as that. Whoever mentioned it first, though, that said it kind of tried to check all of these boxes along the way. It was spot on, because for the first half of the book, I loved how they were developing the characters and flipping back and forth from Theo and Sydney. And then I kept thinking, like, it says on the front it's a thriller, like, where's the thrilling part? And then when that happened, it was like 110% into a thriller. So it offered up a lot of that. I personally don't really consider it a horror book, but that's more like, I just read tons of Stephen King and I'm like, that's a horror book most of the time. But I really enjoyed the different viewpoints that we got from it. The characters, and at least in the first half of the book, really were developing into a super interesting way for me. And then it kind of shifted really quick for the latter half of the book. I did read it really fast though, so that says something to how enjoyable it is. So I liked it. It was a bit of a challenge, it was something different. And then again, some of those times at the end of the book when I'm saying, oh, well, this is just getting ridiculous and I have to have a suspension of disbelief, then Jeff, like you said earlier, some of it's like, well, is it really that far removed from what reality could be? So then that got me thinking, like, how much my experience as a white person maybe skews what is actually happening. So it gave me a lot of stuff to think about. It was just like two different books for most of the time, though.
Yep. Well, Bob, great to hear from you. Thanks for joining us tonight. Are you reporting from your new home?
I am. That's why
Awesome.
I don't know what's going on with the video, but I'm trying my best.
Okay. Well, congrats on that. Looking forward
Thank
to seeing
you.
you guys in person sometime soon. So great to see you tonight, though.
Likewise.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Anyone else that hasn't had a chance that wants to say something or hear or just pose a question about this book or bring up a topic that they were wondering about? I appreciate all of you taking your time tonight and joining us. So I would hate for you not to hear the thing you wanted to talk about. So don't be afraid to bring it up. Otherwise, have I told you how much I enjoy next month's book? It's going to be Andy Weir's follow-up. Well, he actually wrote another book after, which I did not like as much as The Martian. This book, I think, is actually better than The Martian. It's Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary. It's brand new, came out in early May. And it is another space adventure, another using science to conquer a bad situation and try to get out of it. It's really smart, really well written, and I think it'll also pack an emotional punch for you. So check it out, and please join us if you can join us in person, please do. If not, love to see you back here on the Zoom. The Zoom for that one is July 7th. And I will post the invite for it again. Anyone have any other maybe housekeeping notes or questions about stuff coming up, or anything else they want to say? Anyone that really wants to make any comments about Writers and Lovers that didn't get a chance to at our only in-person only meeting? We did Writers and Lovers by Lily King. If there's anyone who wanted to bring that up, you could do that too. But otherwise, I don't want to keep